our seasons do shift and they do change. And if we refuse to acknowledge that, if we refuse to lean into that and shift with them, we will constantly find ourselves fighting against the current. And all that does is slow us down and make us weary. It doesn't change what is. Hi there, I'm Vanessa Kaiser, a ranch girl turned social worker, business leader, and now entrepreneur. I'm passionate about diving into organization, leadership, personal growth, and efficiency. Around here, we call it rhythmic living, that continuous cycle of assessing the season of life that we're in and creating habits, routines, and processes that serve us best. This show is for the busy, the dreamers, the tired, the go-getters, those who want to live fully, grow steadily, and feel inspired each day. Welcome to the Inspiring Heights podcast. Happy New Year's Day. It is wild that we have officially closed the door on 2024 and have ushered in this new year. I wonder how many of you are with me in that it will take us a good 6 months to learn to write 2025 on things. I do a lot of food preservation here on the homestead, and so I'm always writing on bags or jars or whatever, and I have to really pay attention to not write the last year, because when my brain is just kind of going along, I have a tendency to do that. So now every time the calendar flips, I'm like, okay, it's 2025, it's 2025. Oh, that's crazy. Hey, you. Can I ask you something? Does your to-do list ever feel like it's running you instead of the other way around? Do you find yourself wishing for more time, less chaos, and a whole lot more peace? Trust me, I've been there. And that's exactly why I created the Productivity Playbook, Strategies for a Harmonious Life. This course isn't about cramming more into your day. It's about creating a life that actually feels good to live. We'll dive into time management strategies that work, build routines that bring peace instead of pressure, and tackle those overwhelming moments with confidence. Whether you're juggling work and family, managing a business, or just trying to stay sane in a busy season, this course is here to help you take a breath, take control, and build a present and fulfilling life. Ready to take the next step? Head over to inspiringheights.org/courses and grab your spot in the Productivity Playbook today. Because a harmonious life isn't just possible, it's waiting for you. Let's do this together. I'll link this all for you in the show notes. Well, hey, I want to tell you about something new and exciting that we're bringing to the podcast in 2025 called Coffee Chats with Vanessa. These podcast episodes are going to happen about once a quarter, and they're going to be just like this, unscripted, where I talk to you about something that is on my mind, where perhaps I answer questions that you've given me. They're going to be kind of loose and fun, and I am so excited to get to do them with you. A little bit about my heart behind this. When we first started the podcast, what I would do is I would just write kind of general overviews, bullet points, if you will, of what I wanted to talk about in the episode. And then I would sit down behind the mic and I would just talk and talk and talk and talk. Some people are scared of the microphone. I'm totally not. Now you put a camera in front of my face and I am like out of there. But you put a microphone in front of my mouth and I'm like, oh, I feel right at home. But one of the things that I learned as time went on is that everyone, myself included, is competing for very valuable and precious airspace in your headphones. And we're competing against really brilliant minds in both the podcast and audio book world. And so I wanted to make sure that I was providing you with the very best content that I could. Content that was concise enough to digest and understand, that didn't get lost in kind of my rambling, which I can sometimes do when I have a microphone in front of my mouth, and that was just really well thought out. The other thing I would do when I would get done and be like, oh man, I wish I would have said da 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 da. And so I transitioned into a more structured podcast format in which I write my podcasts before I record them so that I know exactly what I want to say. I have really tightened down my language and my points so that they flow the best and they make the best use of your time. And I love doing that too. I love getting that content and knowing that it's valuable, and that has been such a joy. But I miss this a little bit. I miss getting to just chat with you like we're friends over coffee, because that is what Inspiring Heights coaching is all about. It's all about connection. It's all about living inspired. And that's one of the things that I have just really come to appreciate this year about some of the people that I'm following on Instagram and some of the people that I'm listening to podcasts to. I appreciate them most when I can get a glimpse into their actual real lives. And so that's what these coffee chats with me are. They're a glimpse into my actual real head, unscripted. And so I'm excited that you're here. I hope these are valuable and inspiring for you. So I want to share with you 5 big lessons today that I learned in 2024. One of the exercises that I've been doing for several years now at the end of the year is I take some time to reflect on lessons that I've learned in this past year. And then I write them down, typically in the notes section on my planner, and I kind of journal through them. And I do this for a couple of different reasons. Like, one, I really do want a record of my lessons. I love to look back, especially at the end of the year, and just kind of see like how the lessons from the previous year impacted decisions, and then also how they impacted the lessons that I learned this year. So that's one thing. But then the other component of that is that I really don't want to forget the lessons. And I think sometimes if we don't actually pause long enough to consider them, we have this tendency to neglect to remember them. And, I don't know about you, but for me, not every lesson comes served on a golden platter with a hot piping cup of coffee. A lot of lessons come hard learned through mistakes, through disappointments, through frustration, through failure. And I don't want to have to learn them again, right? So I want to remember them. I want to soak them in and take them with me as we head into the new year. And so this year, there's these 5 I really want to share with you. My first lesson was about getting honest with distractions. One of the things that has been probably one of the more challenging parts of this year in entrepreneurship specifically is how to manage my time. And this is probably for a variety of reasons. One reason is that in addition to this piece of entrepreneurship, we are also homesteading, and that takes time and it's big learning curves because we've never done it before. In addition to that, we no longer live with a lot of conveniences around us. So I can't just stop in at the grocery store on my way home. I can't just pick up takeout when I've had a long day. And so we, are kind of living this life that we chose very intentionally, where I cook 3 meals a day and I make almost everything from scratch. And it is like my pride and joy to be able to do that and serve my family and our friends and our neighbors and just all the people that we love in that way. I love to cook for people. And also it just takes an abundance of time. And so it has been this transition of going from I work for someone and this is the requirement of my time. And so therefore like this is the priority of my time, to like I own my own business and my business kind of falls into also these other places of life that hold equal amount of importance, right? Or more. And so it's just been interesting learning how to balance all of that. And then the other component on my time in the business has been return on investment. So sometimes in certain industries, you pretty quickly understand your return on investment of your time, right? Like I do this and this happens. I do this and this happens. In my industry, and this is the case in definitely a lot of industries, not just mine. In my industry, though, it's a little bit hard to see return on investment immediately. a lot of things that you are laboring and toiling and sowing, you may not see for a significant amount of time. And so when the pressure of life kind of starts to build, you're left asking the question, like, is this the best use of my time? And sometimes the answer to that, it feels, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if this is the best use of my time. It's just this kind of constant battle. If you were to talk to my business accountability partner, she would tell you this is a conversation we have had probably 3 days a week for this entire year. It has been at the very tippy top of my brain and what I am trying to like grab a hold of and just master. So it's been this ongoing wrestle and just trying to navigate and figure it out. But in addition to trying to learn how to navigate those things, about the end of September, I had this kind of breakthrough that in order for my time to sort of fall into order, to be making the best of each day and each hour that I had to get really, really brutally honest about things that were distracting me, things that were pulling my time and attention away from whatever I was doing, whether it was at home, in the kitchen, in the garden, or at the office. What I started to realize as I began to unpack some of the distractions that I had in my life is that they were touching so much more than just that one moment, right? It wasn't just, I picked up my phone and I scrolled on social media for what I planned to be 5 minutes, but turned into 30 minutes. And now I lost 30 minutes of my workday. It was, I lost 30 minutes of my workday, which then perpetuated the stress that I had at the end of the day about not feeling like I got as much accomplished as I should have. And then that stress comes into the evening and it gets perpetuated into conversations with my husband and how I'm, handling things around the house and the commitments that I'm willing to make or not make because I just have so much going on. And so getting honest about distractions and really like working pretty hard to weed them out and then sharing them really vulnerably and honestly with a couple of super close people in my circle that I could trust to hold those well, just really helped in some of the time management struggle that I felt like I've been wrestling. I will say that wrestle is just still a part of it. That's another lesson I'm going to talk about here a little bit. I still wrestle with feelings of I want to do more and I have to hustle through this and like just some of those different things, but weeding out distraction and swapping distraction that we might call a break for something that was more productive, that was more life-giving, that served my family, myself, our home well, has been a huge game changer, huge lesson that I hope I never forget. And I hope I just continue to carry well as we move into this new year. Do you ever wish there was a natural, science-backed way to ease aches, boost your mood, and even support healthier skin? I felt the same way until a friend introduced me to LumiBox. Not too long ago, I was venting about long-time ankle pain to one of my girlfriends, and she encouraged me to check out LumiBox, a red light therapy device. She brought it with her for a girls' weekend because this is what it's like to be in your 30s, my friends. I gave it a whirl, and after just a couple of days, I can honestly tell you I was sold. That was the beginning of my journey with this incredible tool for holistic health. Now, LumiBox is a Kaiser family favorite. We use it for everything from soothing aches and eczema to giving our mood a gentle lift on tough days. Here's the deal. LumiBox harnesses the power of red light and near-infrared wavelengths to promote healing deep beneath the skin. Backed by science and loved by so many, it's a simple, natural way to support your mind and body. And for a short time only, LumiBox is offering my listeners an exclusive $260 discount. Just visit LumiBox.com and use the coupon code INSPIRINGHEIGHTS at checkout. Don't wait, this could be your next step towards holistic health. I'll put the link and the coupon code in the show notes. Lesson number 2, implementing weekend reviews. So I happened to see this during a probably scheduled social media interaction. And it was this gal talking about doing weekend reviews. And she said, this is like, it can sometimes take several hours to do it at the end of the week. She talked about doing it on Fridays. And she's like, but I literally just take everything from everywhere. So my notes app, my to-do list, my planner, anything that I have anywhere, and I put it where it goes, right? So sometimes it's moving to-dos to the next week, or sometimes I'm saying these to-dos need to move to a different month, or they need to get canceled and crossed out altogether so that they stop holding space in my brain. They're no longer important. I don't need to do them any longer, right? But then it's also these other things that take up so much room in our head. Our to-do list is a huge component of it, don't get me wrong. But there's all this other stuff, right? I don't know if you're like this, but I will be, if I see something online that I want to try, that I want to further investigate, that I want to maybe shop for, like whenever, I take a screenshot of it. What do you think I do with that screenshot? I rarely do anything with it. But then I'm like still holding on to that thing in the very back of my mind, going like, oh yeah, you should remember to look that up. Like, oh yeah, you should remember. But I rarely remember, right? And then there might be 17 sticky notes on my desk by the end of the week of like books I want to read, or, podcasts I want to check out, or like, oh, I need to investigate this course or this continuing ed component. And they're just all scattered and they're unorganized. And it causes, for me, what I've realized is that it causes a fairly substantial amount of stress. But it's this stress that so many of us live in every single day that we don't even realize it. We don't even recognize that that's the thing. That is one of the things. It's one of the rivers that's, feeding our stress ocean. And so I started probably mid-October-ish implementing these weekend reviews. So I've only been doing them for a couple of months. I definitely missed weeks. But what I can tell you about the weeks that I missed is that I felt it. I felt the angst of it, especially this time of year, but I think this is literally true for any time of year. We're holding a lot of things, right? We're holding we're gifting and we're planning parties and we're planning, meals for family, and we're just like, we're planning activities and events and all of these things, and we're trying to hold them all together. And so then we get to the end of the week and it's like, we have a lot of thoughts going in a lot of directions, but we don't have a place to bring them all together. And so then they just keep going, but we're doing our best to keep our arms around it, but they're just stretched as far as they can go. That's how it felt on the weeks that I didn't do them. So this is what they look like for me. Typically on Fridays, I carve out about 2 hours, which some of you are like, holy moly, what do you do for 2 hours? It does not always take that long. Sometimes it takes longer. It just depends on the week that I've had. It depends on how much stuff needs to be moved around. But in that 2 hours, I look at everything. So I look at all the screenshots on my phone that I've taken that week, and I put them somewhere. Like if it's a recipe, I write it down. If it's a book I want to read, I put it on my to read list, which is in a specific spot, right? If it's like, oh, I want to shop for this, I either shop for it or I put it in my planner on my to-do list somewhere. And then I delete the screenshot so that it's clean going into the next week. Anything that I save or that I bookmark on social media, I go through and I look at it and I categorize it, right? Like, hey, this is stuff I want to try. Hey, this is blah, blah, blah. I actually go through and look at that stuff, because so oftentimes what happens is, and this happens everywhere. It happens on Pinterest. It happens on social media. It happens when we're just searching for something on Google. We come across something. We want to try it. We want to look it up. But then it gets lost in the abyss of all the other things that we're doing. And so sometimes I think we miss really valuable things because we don't ever make time to go back. And if we're never going to make time to go back, then what's the point of making time to go there in the first place? That's like a question I've been really wrestling with myself. I literally go through all of that. I go through my planner and I move everything that didn't get accomplished this week to next week. I ask myself the question, like, does this need to get moved or does it need to get erased? Is it actually going to happen next week, or do I need to plan it for further in the future? And then anything that, even if that isn't anywhere, anything that I know that I want to just brain dump for next week in terms of like things I want to do, things I want to investigate, whatever, I go ahead and I do that brain dump. I don't always schedule things, right, from the brain dump, but I do then come in to work on Monday and go, okay, here's the things I want to kind of flesh out for my week. So weekend reviews, making time for them has been really, really helpful for me in trying to hold things well and not just like have to remember and try to hold things on in the back of my brain, but to be able to get them out and make them tangible and then decide past just the moment in which I see them, is this actually something that I want to put in my life and commit time to or not? So weekend reviews, so very helpful. Stay tuned when I get these a little more under my belt and I can speak with a little more authority on them, just because it hasn't been very long. I want to give it a little bit more time, but as I do, I will for sure drop a podcast episode or two on the topic and just share with you what I have learned and invite you into what has been for me this very, very life-giving rhythm. Lesson number 3 is not living like life is going to slow down when ... This is it's so interesting. We're back on the time management and just, getting things done and having a manageable to-do list and making the best use of our time and being efficient and productive and all of those things. We're back on that a little bit. I told you this was a really big part of my year. It took up so much brain and headspace. But I remember kind of deep into the fall, I was driving home one night and I had some upcoming plans that had kind of gotten thrown in last minute. And I was trying to figure out like, okay, so I have this many days until this happens. And then I need to, by then, all of these, 125 things need to be accomplished. And so if we do this tonight and that tomorrow and this and this and this, then maybe blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, okay, well, how do I start like picking things off that maybe aren't going to happen? And like, how would I prioritize that? And all of those things are good. Those are good exercises. Reprioritizing our time, really asking like what matters, right? It's all good. But what occurred to me that night on my way home, as I was just reeling through all of these things, is that I was approaching our entire life like, when we get this done, then things will slow down. And for a good chunk of the year, I'll tell you, a lot of this has been centered around our house. So if you're new around here, we remodeled my grandparents' old farmhouse. And when we moved out here, it was such a joy. But with any home ownership comes like never, ever, ever, ever ending projects. And that is true when you are, still have half a house to remodel. It's true when you were remodeling from a really long ways away. And so you weren't here. And so there's projects undone, right? And when you moved in and it's true in so many circumstances. It's true in ours as well. So it's felt like this constant state of like, if we could just get these 57 things done, then everything will be fine. Like, then we'll have a really good baseline. Then we can kind of build from there. Then we can kind of whatever, right? And what occurred to me that night was like, there are some baseline things that if you would get them done, it would help to reduce stress. It would help to make like, oh, we're hosting people or people are coming and we're so excited and whatever. It'd help to make those times a little easier, a little less like, okay, we got to hurry and clean. It would help. But also, the projects list is never going to end. So if you treat house projects like they are urgently on fire, like you just have to punch through them and then you're going to get to the other side and things are going to slow down and be more relaxing, you're going to live in this constant state of stress and punch season forever. And here's the impact that has on my life. And I would guess that for those of you who maybe wrestle with this from time to time, it might be the same impact on yours. When we live like every season is a punch season or every day is a punch day. And here's what I mean by punch. So for example, when we were launching the course, there was about a 2-week punch period where our nose was to the grind. We worked hard, long days. We said no to everything that wasn't the course. We skipped a big community event, right? Because I'm like, I can't, I have to do course stuff, right? And it stunk, but it like the course was our number one priority. Like we had set this deadline. It was important. We had committed to it and we had to see it through to completion. That was the punch season I felt super good about. We all have those. They all take different form. We have them at different times and there's a different number of them throughout the year, but not every day of our year, of our life, can be a punch season. And when we treat it like it is, we have a hard time making commitments. This is how it impacts me in the biggest way. We should really have those people over for dinner, but not this week because I have to do all of these things this week. Okay, and then we get to next week and it's like, well, we should have them over for dinner, but blah, 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 blah. I really should go visit this person, but I really should commit to this outing or this thing or this, opportunity to volunteer and serve in this way in our community, but blah, 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 blah. And the thing is that it's creating, when we treat every day or every big project like it is a punch season, when it really isn't. When I treat organizing my pantry like it's a punch season, when really it's just a project that needs to get done, but there is no like life-altering thing that's going to come from completing this project, but I prioritize it over literally everything else in my life, I will always do that. I will always choose projects over people, over opportunity to serve if I don't have them in the right bucket. If I'm not viewing my time from a posture of truth, if I'm viewing my time through that lens that everything is going to slow down when I'm going to have more time to do these like kind of fun extra things when. If I treat every day like that, then I will never have time to do those fun, quote, extra things, which means connecting with people that we love, which means spending time serving. And so I would tell you, this is one of the things, I think I said this at the beginning of the show, that some of the lessons are ongoing. They're still learning. This is one of them for me. I'm still learning this. I'm still learning to go, okay, what's the best way to hold my time this week? What is what actually matters? What is a priority? And when I get this sense of I just want to get these things done, I really try to ask, what's going to happen when those things are done? What are they going to accomplish for me? Because here's what I don't want to do. I also don't want to go so far the other way where it's nothing is ever a priority and I just let everything go. And then I'm living in a state of chaos. And some people flourish a little better in a state of chaos. I don't flourish there. It stresses me out. It is not neglecting things. It's not saying nothing is important or timelines are never important or deadlines are never significant. But it is saying hey, I am in control of this. So let me put this in just in an actual real life perspective. Let me not neglect other things that are also significant and important in the name of acting like when this is done, then I'll have all this free time. So it's a lot of words to say. I've had to learn. I'm still learning. I'm still honing this, but I am working really hard to keep it top of mind. Lesson number 4. The tone I set for my schedule is how other people will often attempt to engage with it. This is, again, just a very kind of raw and vulnerable thing to share with all of you, but I think it's important to share. When I started this business, there has been a lot of feelings that I've had where I felt like I have had to fight for people to think that what I'm doing is legitimate. There is no one in my inner circle or even my outer circle where I know them and they know me who do what I'm doing. I don't know any other digital creators. I don't know any other online coaches. I don't know any other people who are building a business solely online, who are building courses and creating them and coaching people in that format. I do not know them. I have a lot of people in my sphere of influence. I have a lot of podcasters and authors that do the work that I'm doing that I learn from. But in my inner sphere, there is no one. And so because no one totally understands what my day-to-day looks like, and because no one totally grasps what it is I am exactly doing or why it takes months to create an online course, it can start to bring this is what it feels like to me. It can start to bring my time into question. And there have been many, many, many times this year, many, where I have gotten pretty defensive about my time because it feels like sometimes my time is not valued like it would be if I was working for somebody else and people understood specifically and exactly what I did. And so I've really wrestled with that because I'm like, is this what's going to be forever? Or like when I hit a certain level of success, then people will start to respect my time in the business. Or what does that look like? And here's what I've learned, you guys. First of all, I think this insecurity is more solely on my head than it is anybody else's. Here's why. I don't get to control how other people view me. But I get to control how I view me, and I get to control how I talk about the business, and I get to control how I spend my days and the boundaries that I set with my time. And how I do all of those things, how I talk about the business, how I set boundaries, how I control my time, how I allow things to happen during, normal working business hours or how I don't, that impacts how people engage with my schedule. So this is one of those lessons I would say that I'm still learning. I'm taking what I've learned and taking the truth of it into 2025 and kind of keeping it front and center as I just continue to work this out, continue to get more comfortable in entrepreneurship and what it looks like here in this season of life. This leads me to the fifth lesson that I want to share with you today. Seasons change, and so should we. I talk about seasons all the time, right? I literally have Ecclesiastes 3:1-8 tattooed on my arm as a reminder that seasons change. They change all the time. Sometimes they change day to day. Sometimes they last for years. Sometimes they last for months. Our seasons are complex. There's multiple layers to them. And knowing the season that we're in is so, so critical for creating habits and routines and rhythms to support the season instead of fight against it. If you've been around Inspiring Heights at all here on social media, in our course, you know that. I talk about it all the time. I'm super, super passionate about it. This year, I have felt this so much more deeply than I maybe ever have before. Our change in lifestyle has just brought immense clarity to the significance and the importance of knowing and leaning into the season. So when we moved here in December, we went through the winter and it was still, it was quiet, it was relaxing. I mean, I did take a sabbatical in February. We started the business in March. But even aside from that, I would just say like winter felt like this amazingly awesome season of rest for both my husband and I. And my husband didn't get to take a sabbatical, right? And so it was just like, oh, this is like a season of rest. And then we moved into the spring, late spring, early summer when we planted the garden and we got started on that. And all of a sudden, the season of rest went into a season of labor. And our days were full. They were long. There were so many nights this summer where we ate dinner at like 9 p.m. Because it was still daylight outside. And so, you got things to do and it's daylight outside. And there's a lot more hours of daylight in the summer than there are in the winter. And I remember so many things about the transition into spring summer mode. Amongst them was, I remember thinking probably in like July, like, okay, winter's coming. There will be a season of rest ahead here. We try to be really intentional about resting each week. So it's not that, but it's just that there's seasons. There's seasons where the rest is kind of perpetuated through the days. And then there's seasons where it isn't, and we're laboring and we're kind of going at fuller speed. The other thing that I learned as we transitioned, particularly from early spring into late spring and summer, was that if I didn't change, if my schedule didn't change, if my routines didn't change, we would have had kind of honestly a miserable summer. There's just no other way to put it. My routine specifically for morning, but even for evening as far as that goes, but specifically for morning is so wildly different this time of year than it is when we get to planting and harvesting season. And so I learned in just this like new, like so tangible way that our seasons do shift and they do change. And if we refuse to acknowledge that, if we refuse to lean into that and shift with them, we will constantly find ourselves fighting against the current. And all that does is slow us down and make us weary. It doesn't change what is. So seasons change, and so should we. Friend, I hope that you have had just such a remarkable holiday season. I hope that this anticipation of the new year ahead of us is one that's filled with hope and with joy of what is to come. I hope that if you are feeling weary, maybe the holidays weren't easy, maybe they were hard, maybe they were full of grief or turmoil, maybe you're just in a really tough season. I hope that as you plan and dream for the year ahead, that you can reflect first on the lessons that you learned and let them carry you into 2025. Happy New Year. One more quick thing before I go. I wanted to remind you of the free tool that I created for you called the Personal Strategic Planning Guide. If you are feeling stuck, maybe you're afraid to start, or you're just overwhelmed with what you've already written down in your New Year planning, this guide will help you. It will walk you through a year-end review. It'll help you to establish and reflect on the lessons that you have learned this year. And then it will guide you through questions for setting your best plans in motion for this year ahead. You can grab this guide for absolutely free by heading over to inspiringheights.org/freebies/2025 personal strat plan. Enter your email address and the guide will be delivered directly to your inbox. I will also drop this link for you in the show notes below. And that's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Do you have questions, comments, or insights on today's content? I would love to hear from you. You can DM me on Facebook or Instagram, or head over to our website, inspiringheights.org, and click on the Contact Us form. I will link all those locations here in the show notes. P.S. If you haven't already, I would love for you to leave a 5-star rating and a quick review of the podcast. This helps get our content in the hands of new listeners. Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter and follow us on social media for rhythmic doses of inspiration. All right, friends, take a deep breath and be inspired where your feet are. Bye for now.